Life is simple. And Lydia Contraceptive. With Lydia, you truly decide.
Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we get the right guests, we ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. It's an interactive show. If you're watching on television, get in touch with us on the WhatsApp number on the screen. If you're watching on any of the social media platforms, feel free to put your comments underneath the stream. Tonight we are discussing the latest Electoral Commission and the registration of voters for the 2020 elections. Today is the last but one day of the final phase. We already have 15.1 million people officially registered. Projections are we'll get to 16.7 million people by close of Thursday. What does this mean for the register? Don't forget, one of the strong arguments the EC made for this whole exercise was that the Ghana voters register was bloated. We're going to have two very interesting people to talk about this. When we come back, I'll tell you who they are. Stay with me. Welcome back. Don't forget, The Point of View is brought to you by Airtel Tigo. Life is simple. So tonight we'll be speaking to the Vice President of Imani, Bryce Simmons. He's in studio with us. We'll also be joined by Nimo, who is the head of elections for the MPP. He will join us via Zoom. What are we doing? We're going through the numbers. So what really is the situation with the register? Let's show you some of the EC's own data first. But let me say good evening to Bryce. Bryce, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. We'll be joined by Ivan shortly on the Zoom session. I wanted to show you, before we started, what the EC has been sharing. I think the EC has been showing us summaries of the various phases. So they've done 5 phases. So there on your screen, you have the total registered as of the end of phase 5. Look in the bottom right, 14.312 million people. So after phase 1, you had 2.2 million. After phase 2, you had 2.2. Phase 3, you had 3.8. Phase 4, you had 3.2. Phase 5, you have 14.3 as the total. Now, day 31 has been added. That day 31, when you add to the phase total of 14.3, you have 15 million people. 15 million people have done the registration so far. Let me also show you the map to show the regional breakdown of these numbers. Now, when you look at the map as of the beginning or the end of day 31, you will find out that we have 15,117,436 people who have registered. So there's a bit of a challenge with the tally. Even though on the documents I showed you earlier, you have 15.04. In terms of the map I'm showing you is 15.1 million. Be that as it may, this data we are told includes the first day of phase 6. Now, whatever you do, you can have the summary of each phase. Now, if you look at the daily average for each phase, phase 1's daily average had about 367,000 registered voters every day for the first phase. That figure rose slightly to 370,000 for the second phase. Now, phase 3 had an average daily number of 631,000. We understand that the EC increased the number of BVDs to allow for more people to register. They realized that there were long queues at the centers for phase 1 and 2. So phase 3 had 631,000. Phase 4 had 564,000 as well. But phase 5 dropped a bit to 456,000. Now I'm going to show you a quick video report that our Kweku Eduama Ansa put together. He visited the registration center on the first day of the final phase. And it turns out that even though people are registering, the numbers don't seem as high as the numbers have been for particularly the third and fourth phases. After that report, we'll come and break down the numbers as to whether there was even the need to do this at all. Because some people are arguing that if you look at the kind of numbers we've made, it's very similar to the previous numbers. So why the whole hullabaloo? Here's Kweku's report.
The final phase of the ongoing registration exercise has seen a low turnout as compared to the first 3 phases. Data from the Electoral Commission shows that as at day 31 of the exercise, over 15 million people had been captured onto the new voters register. However, a visit by the news team to some centers showed that EC officials at some centers were having a field day. At the Park Cinema Hall 1 registration center at Adabraka, only 39 persons had registered in the last 4 days in the final phase of the exercise. This, the returning officer attributed to the rush that was experienced in the early phases of the exercise.
Since we've already registered, other team came here for the first phase, so we are doing the mop-up. So it seems for the 4 days, you have registered 39 people. Up to now, we've registered 4 people. Yeah, 4 people. I think we are doing it area by area, and it seems for the first phase, we had 2 teams here. So meaning they've registered a lot of people already. Yeah, that's why they are not coming.
Similar situation was witnessed at the South Valley Center at Adabraka. Here, about 216 persons had been registered in the 4-day period. At the Standard Education Center at Asylum Down, registrants were strictly adhering to all safety protocols as they took turns. Gideon Fusaini is the registration officer in charge of special duties here.
Those who are very familiar with the system, especially those who listen and they try to exercise some sort of patience, they know that we will come to them. I think this particular center, they were very good. They followed the system very well because they know we will come to them. So they realized that there was no need for them to come to other polling centers and register. So they waited for us. That is why you could see the numbers coming up day in and day out. Yes, we've registered 20 voters so far. When you come, I will direct you. If the nurse doesn't see you, I will have to direct you straight to where the protocol, area is. You have to go through the protocols before you can even come and sit down. And you see the protocols, you have to observe all of them. Your nose masks, washing of hands, sanitizing, everything must be in place before you even come to the registration table for us to register you.
Some registrants the news team spoke to say the exercise has been smooth.
You know, today being a holiday too, and as you know, we are not in normal time, so I came today to register because I just knew that during the latter part, a lot of people would have rushed to register already at the earlier stages. So during the latter part, there wouldn't be much pressure. As you can see, the place is not much busy. So that's why I decided to register around this time. Well, it was very fast. I spent about 2 minutes here in registering. Yeah, so it was very fast. In less than 2 minutes.
Not long ago, within less than 10 to 15 minutes, I'm done. Yeah. Oh, they are doing well. They are doing well. Honestly, things are just moving on well, and I'm happy. Everything's under control. Due to business schedules, that's the reason why. So I made my mind that so far as today has been an holiday, then I'll take the opportunity to come and do it today.
So it is clear that a lot of people have been able to register in the ongoing voter registration exercise across the country. Now, a visit to the various centers in Accra proved that the rush that occurred in the first to the third phase of the exercise has helped in registering a lot of people. Reporting from the Greater Accra region, my name is Kweku Ediama Ansa.
So that was Kweku Ediaman's report. Let me show you 2 other things before I talk to Bride. The 2016 electoral register, here it is. So as for the 2016 election, we have 15.7 million voters. That's the breakdown you see there. So Greater Accra has 3 million, Ashanti has 2.8 million, Upper West has 415,000, so 15.7. Now, the calculations we have made, if the registration follows the trend we've calculated, we should have 16.7 million people on the register. So that's a whole 1 million more than this figure. The other point I need to make is that for the 2019 district level elections, the figure EC gave us was 16.8 million voters. So EC has 16.8 million voters in the register that they said was bloated, right? So 16.8 million voters. All right. There are other facts we'll bring to the table for the discussion, but I think we've set the basis enough. So 15.1 million have registered so far at the beginning of phase 6. That excludes at least 4 days of phase 6. 16.8 million were in the old register, which we are told is bloated. By the time we are done on Thursday or tomorrow, the number of registered voters will be approximately the same as it was in the 2019 district level elections. Mr. Bryce Simmons, let's start with you.
Yes.
So what has Imani been saying about the register, apart from the fact that you were saying that the whole registration was too expensive and all the things they were using? I think you made a fundamental point also about the fact that you did not think that the Ghanaian voters register was that bloated abnormally. Can you break down that point for us?
So we started off saying that we didn't need a new registration because the reason that the EC gave for compiling a new register was untenable. It was untenable based on the evidence that was there in facts and in the records. They said they had equipment problems based on the fact that since 2011 they had made no upgrades whatsoever. They bought no new equipment. And all their statements that they issued at the beginning of their campaign to try and get a new register was focused on that point. But since 2011, they hadn't bought any new equipment, and therefore the equipment were obsolete. We looked in the records and found that as late as 2018, they were buying thousands of new equipment. So there could be no basis whatsoever for that argument. The EC has never responded to that point, that since 2016 and in 2018, they've bought thousands of new equipment, and we don't know where those equipment are. The Auditor General was scheduled to do an asset audit of the Electoral Commission in this cycle. It's clear what has happened to the Auditor General, so that asset audit will not happen. In their last asset audit, they had no asset register. So essentially, the audit couldn't happen. Everybody knows they bought tens of thousands of equipment since 2012 when we moved to biometric. Not a single time, not once, has the EC announced a proper public auction of this equipment. So our position was always very clear and consistent. Where are these equipment that you keep throwing away and buying new ones? These things cost tens of millions of dollars. Because they failed to answer that, and because for some reason the middle class in this country, the elite in this country was not that keen on joining us to take on the EC, it became a battle of just the opposition party and a very few civil society organizations. And in those circumstances, it's not that difficult to press on. When we saw that they were definitely committed to buying the equipment, I think the debate then shifted to whether they should do the compilation at all. Even if they're going to buy the equipment, should you do a wholesale recompilation? It then became clear that the only reason the NPP had supported the purchase of the equipment was because they suspected that the register was bloated. And a lot of their party ideologues and strategists have made that argument consistently. So the EC, in order not to lose the political capital that it had, at the very least with one half of the political spectrum, was duty-bound to compile a new register. And this was notwithstanding the fact that we're in the midst of a pandemic, and arguments were made that if you were to implement social distancing properly, there is no way you'll be able to register people in 36 days. So what we saw in the first 2 tests of the process was that the EC deliberately, because I have video evidence which I'm happy to share with you, did not implement social distancing, at the very least did not enforce them. So we have a lot of video footage of places where it's quite clear that nobody's there trying to force people to stay 1 meter apart. In those circumstances, they've been able to compile numbers that are similar to the ones before, which then brings us rightly to this debate about whether or not the register has ever been bloated. But it was always a secondary debate. We never agreed with the view that the register was bloated. And we were very concerned that the way and manner in which some very powerful individuals in this country are hell-bent on railroading through a complete recompilation, and in the process allowing collateral damage to even the identity infrastructure of this country, refusing to accept birth certificates as prima facie evidence of citizenship and things like that. we're going to have lasting repercussions. And those lasting repercussions are interesting. But at the very least, if there's any good that has come out of this, it will put two theories that have bedeviled the policy of this country for many years to pay. It is going to ensure that those two theories never resurface to torment this country anymore. And those theories are, one, that somehow this register has been deliberately inflated through some machinations by some people that they don't name, but there is some deliberate effort, not necessarily that there are no random problems with the register that affect all political parties in the same way, but rather that there are deliberate machinated attempts to inflate the register in favor of a particular party. I think that theory will be demolished, and that's part of the discussion.
So you are going to demolish that theory today?
Absolutely. The second theory is that there are some Togolese or foreigners, they call it the ECOWAS phenomenon. And often they start with Togo, because I don't hear a lot about Ivorians and Burkinabes. So there are some mysterious Togolese that somehow have invaded Ghana and are duty-bound. I don't know how they, but it's like the typical conspiracy theory. It has all the elements and all the features of a conspiracy theory. There are some Togolese, and these Togolese are hell-bent on shaping Ghana's election and Ghana's politics to a certain
So you are going to debunk the theory that our register is bloated and that it is riddled with foreigners, particularly Togolese. You are going to demolish those theories?
Yes, and particularly with the view that these Togolese have some geopolitical agenda to destabilize Ghana or to influence Ghanaian politics in some fashion.
Okay. So let's go through the first stage. How are you going to do the demolition?
Well, it's very basic statistical analysis.
Okay.
When the decision to challenge the EC's decision or to accept the old voter card and the birth certificates was taken by the NDC, most of us were not interested, because we had a view that this was not a matter really for the courts. In our view, this was a matter for civic mobilization, civic activism. And I remember Imani being asked several times why don't you proceed to court, and Imani continually saying, we don't think the court is the right forum, because these are matters that are political, they are civic, they are policy oriented. And in our courts, let's be very honest, they've not been very effective in resolving policy issues for many, many years. And I don't want to delve into that with all due respect to their lordships. So we didn't have any interest. But eventually we saw that was the only avenue left. So when and because of the fact that the NDC is obviously on one side of the political spectrum, it was a bit touchy and awkward for us to go in and try to find an amicus in the very early stages. But when the other gentleman then went to court and also sought to challenge the decision of the Electoral Commission, but on a more broader canvas, because he decided that he also wanted to challenge the issue of the birth certificate, challenge the issue on the decision they taken on the birth certificate. So he felt that was the right time to enter with an amicus. Good. The court refused to accept the amicus.
They threw you out
completely. And their basis was that, and obviously we had to wait for many days before they had their ruling, which is kind of strange, because in between the time that they give their judgment, the person sits down to actually write the judgment. You wonder what could have. I mean, if you don't have the reasoning for which they are making the decision, it's surprising that they're able to actually produce a reason.
We have an excerpt of that judgment, and I'm sure they'll show it, where they make specific comments to the fact that the previous EC failed to remove the people in the register who were illegally there. Don't forget that the Abu Ramadan case had sort of come to a conclusion that people who had used the National Health Insurance card to register were ineligible, and the EC was directed to expunge those names. In the case you are referring to, somehow the EC argued that was actually never properly done.
Well, Justice Cote never tells us what properly means.
Yes, but he did say that it wasn't properly done.
What does properly mean? When you have a consulting entity asked to superintend over a process of expounding names, where the EC initially, remember this is the same EC that consistently tells untruths. Initially it said that it was having difficulty to actually locate these people because of the way that the database was structured. When they were actually brought to court and under oath, on pain of perjury, they did acknowledge that they had manual mechanisms of retrieving the old forms that would enable them to expand these names, because they were recording the ID numbers of these cards, because the formats are different. The National Health Identification Card has a different format from the other types of identity document. They could still do it. And eventually, as far as we are concerned, the courts, in the last, remember that Abu Ramadan case was a series of cases. In the last of those cases, the court agreed with the EC that they had expanded names. So I'm not sure how this has been resolved. And when you read the judgment, it is not very clear the base upon which that is being made. That determination.
But I'm just pointing out that Cote did say that there was not, it wasn't properly expunged.
Yeah,
Whatever, for what it's worth.
yeah, well,
yes, and which was one of the reasons why they said that then there's a need for a new register, and that's why they threw out. So show me statistically why the theory that our register is bloated falls flat, and why the theory that our register is filled with Togolese also falls flat. But I need to say that I have Evans Nimako on the Zoom. He will be listening, and he will respond to some of the points you make. So why are you saying that the theory that our register is bloated is flawed?
Demographic projection is pure statistics. It's a matter of looking at a trend and asking yourself, is it that they are saying that somehow the register has a particular nature that allows itself to be inflated at every 10, or there was a particular period in history where this intervention happened? Because you can do a trend line and you see that the rate of increase in terms of number of people that are on the register is pretty consistent. Starting around 10 million in 2004, it took us as almost 80 years before we compiled a new register, and by that time we had hit something in the region of 14.7, 14.8 million.
Okay, right. Please put up the numbers I've given you for the total registered voters from 2000 to 2020. So he's talking, we can show it. So again, just to help the argument, in 2000, the number of registered voters was 10.7 million. In 2004, so start from the extreme column on your right. The column is the difference. 2004, it comes down to 10.3 million. 2008, it goes up to 12.4 million. In 2012, it goes up to 14.03 million.
Are you looking at the trends?
Very consistent. Then 2016, 15.7. And then now, where we are now, it will get to 16.7. So this is what Bryce is referring to. Go on.
When you look at the numbers and you look at the rates of increase, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that there is some sudden, abrupt, unexpected, inexplicable events that are somehow leading to an inflation situation.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So you move from 10 million, then you get to 14 million after 8 years. 40.7 million. Then you add about 1.2 million to the register in 2016. Then in 2019,
so
you add 1 million more.
So 2016 you have 15.7.
So you add 1 million more.
Yeah, and then 2019,
1.2 million more.
16.8.
Exactly.
Yes.
You add 1.2 million more when you do another limited registration.
Yes.
What is it about those trends that suggests that at some material moment there was some attempt to inflate the numbers? Apart from maybe some random issues which we're going to discuss here, around minors being on the register and dead people not being sufficiently removed from the register.
Fair enough.
And I'll come to that point because there's a lot about that point that we need to also delve into. If you look at it critically, you can take the number of dead people using the age-adjusted death rates. So if you look at if you just take the raw death rates, that's naive analysis, right? Because it's not the overall death rate that matter. It's the death rate of people that are of voting age. When you take that number and you adjust it year by year, you say, okay, these are the number of people that are dying in Ghana year by year. And these people ought to be off the register. But because of the fact that we have a very rich system, they are not off the register. And you continue to remove them every year. Since the last register was compiled in 2012, you get to around 1.4 million people removed at the end of the cycle. Then you say, okay, I need to do another analysis. This is very important, so let's be very clear about this. First, you start off from 2012. You take the age-adjusted death rates. You use the numbers in the Ghana mortality report. I think the latest edition was 2014. You start to do your projections based on a regression analysis of the previous trend.
Yes.
And then you continue to project onwards. You find out that you're removing a certain number of people from the register every year statistically.
Yes, we've shown that on the screen.
When you get to 2020, you will get to a number, and that number will be somewhat less than what is on the register. What is interesting is that then you counterbalance that and say, okay, even though people are dying and they are not being removed from the register, we also have people that are turning of age. They are coming of age, sorry. They are coming of age. So from the people that are 17 transitioning to 18, that specific number, to do the analysis to extract that number is somewhat cumbersome, but you can do it. Because we have a population structure. And within that population structure, which I think I gave you some charts to show, you'll be able to determine within that band how many are transitioning every year. So what is the maximum likelihood estimate for that particular parameter? If you did that, you will find out a balance out beautifully. Then you say, but why is it that? And that is actually what I wanted to focus on, because a lot of fair-minded people, a lot of even level-headed people look at the total population, they look at the numbers that are on the register, and they go like, this is not possible. I mean, how can a country of 30 million have 70 million people on the register? The fact of the matter is that we're not entirely certain, that there are no people below 18 on the register. And I'll come to that point later on. So we have to assume that there are some minors on the register and that there are some dead people on the register. And that gives us a good number. Now, the second point that you need to note on that point is that if people are dead, they don't vote. If people are minors, they shouldn't vote. And I'll reserve that point because we need to delve into that later. Whether or not we can remove them by the means by which the people that support this particular approach have proposed that we remove them. So we now say, okay, given that fact, is the Ghanaian register particularly abnormal? Is it abnormal in terms of the way that it's structured? Is it abnormal in terms of the total number?
Let me lead you there with two things. If you look at our population numbers, in 2012 we had 25 million people, 25.9 million people. We had 14.03 people on the register. 2016 we had 28 million people, and then we had 15.7 million people on the register. 2019
we had
30.5 million people.
Well, if you do the projection properly, you get 31 million.
Good.
So so it's 54.5%.
Exactly.
Average. Now, what is interesting is that trend has stayed almost consistent throughout.
Yes, between 53 and 55%.
And that tells you something. It tells you that what we are dealing with, it's either random effect, even if you accept that there is some bloating from minors and dead people, it's so random that you cannot eliminate it, because every phenomenon on earth has random effects that are not.
How does that 54% compare with other countries?
I gave you the chart for that as well.
Okay, show me that. So yeah,
what you see is very interesting, and we did extensive analysis several weeks to try and understand how did these differences arise among countries. It's four primary factors. One is the electoral situation. Is the democratic situation in that country competitive? So do you have a lot of two very strong parties or three strong parties of that? Or something of that nature. So people have, for instance, pointed us to Botswana, and they say, look, Botswana is a very advanced democracy.
Please show me the comparative analysis graph. The graph that has the red line at the bottom. Please show it to me.
In Botswana, they have only 44% of the total population in the register, while Ghana has 54%. And I said, because Botswana is a country where the electoral situation, the democratic situation, is not very competitive. In the last election in Botswana, the opposition lost almost all its seats in parliament to the ruling party. If you take countries that are comparable to us democratically, like Cape Verde, where there's actually competitive politics, in Tunisia, where there is emerging competitive politics, you find out that they have higher percentages. Sometimes in the regional, okay. In Tunisia, it's about 60%.
Yes.
In Cape Verde, it's about 66%. If you go to other countries outside Africa, like Azerbaijan,
so let me go through the numbers. Algeria has 55% of registered voters as a percent of population. Angola has 30.6. Argentina 74.9. Let me focus on African countries for now. Benin 47.15. Burkina Faso 26.39. Burundi 43.00. Tunisia 60%. Cape Verde 66. Ghana 54. Other countries: Bangladesh 29. Belarus 74. Azerbaijan 52. Austria 71, Armenia 85. So if you put Ghana in here, Ghana is is in the midpoint.
Good. And what is interesting about those dynamics is, like I said, it's 4 points. One is how competitive the democratic practice in that country is. Number two, urbanization rate. One of the most fascinating dynamics. I gave you some charts showing you that in Ghana, our urbanization rate is unbelievable. So the rural, when Ghana was more rural, you had a more pyramidal shape. As it becomes less and less rural, it becomes a conical shape. And the reason why that is very simple. In the rural area, fertility is higher. In the urban area, fertility has tended to be lower. Now, fertility is a very important point because it means that you are bringing younger people, so that your age tilt is towards the lower age ranges, right?
Okay.
Now, as we become more urban, we're also becoming less and less younger as a society compared to some other African countries. And that's a very important point as well. Third point is the way in which our particular ID card, the voter ID card, is used in this country.
I want you to hold on with that point. I want to summarize what you've said so far, and I'll bring Evans in. So Bryce Simmons has a couple of arguments. He's saying that if you look at the way our voter register numbers have gone up, it's not abnormal. It's followed a natural trend from 10 million in 2000 to 16.8 million is not abnormal. Number two, if you account for dead people and new people being added using basic calculations, there's nothing extraordinary about the register we have. If you look at the percentage of our population that is on the register, 55% or 54%, it's also not abnormal if you compare it to comparative countries. He's going to make a point about the system we use to register. Let me say good evening to Evans. Evans, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you and good evening.
Great. I'll take a short break. When I come back, I'll take your initial reactions to what Bright has said. This is the point of view. Stay with us.
Morning. I just sent you Airtel to go money from my new number. We delivered 2 healthy kids last night. Congrats. Have you heard? Kwesi has
2 kids. Have you heard?
My son has 2 kids. Kwesi. No. No, your sister almost 7. Have you heard the news about the missing chicken?
Have you heard? Get free calls and free Airtel Tigo money transfers for 6 months on new Airtel Tigo SIMs. Get a SIM today.
Welcome back to The Point of View. My guest in studio is Bryce Simmons, and I have also Evans Namaku, Director of Elections of the MPP. Let me bring Evans in. Evans, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you already have heard what Bryce has said. Just to give some background, we have 15.1 million so far. Projections are that by the time EC is done, close of Thursday, we'll have 16.7 million. Now, that 16.7 million is just 100,000 lower than what we had in the 2019 register,
more than 17 million.
which was 16.8.
I'll come to that also.
So the argument is that how seriously bloated was the register to merit this whole exercise? What are your thoughts? And also he argues about the natural flow of our register in terms of the numbers. There's nothing extraordinary about those numbers. What are your initial comments?
Thank you, Bernard, and let me say good evening to your viewers and to Bright as well. Bernard, I think the position of Bright hasn't changed since the issue of Ghana having a new voters register came up. I'm saying this because he's one of those who really challenged the Electoral Commission for undertaking the venture of getting for Ghana a new voters register. I think the argument from the Electoral Commission was that the voter management system they inherited has some defaults, and going into the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections, they could not vouch for going to elections with that kind of electoral management system. And so a lot of discussions went on, pros and cons. Those who disagreed with the EC media points, they were not successful. I think that the NDC even took it up further. They went to court, and the court gave judgment. And so for me, Bright can still decide not to listen, but to keep on to his entrenched position of not to accept a new voter register for Ghana. But looking at the numbers, we had, as you've given to the viewers, we had a certain number as of 2019. We had 16.8 million.
Yes.
Even if the EC was not going to undertake a new voter registration system altogether, the EC was going to run a limited voter registration exercise.
Yes.
And in an election year, the figures will tell you that you're going to have some sizable numbers. In the limited registration exercise that took place in 2019, the EC recorded a figure of 1.2 million. Okay, that added up to the 2016 figures, and we had 16.8 million. Assuming that 16.8, assuming that in current situation, the EC had gone ahead to do limited registration exercise and had recorded, say, 2 million.
How will you record 2 million?
That would have taken us. That would have taken us to. I hope Bryce will give me.
No, go ahead.
Yes. So Bennett, that would have given us close to 80 million to 90 million. And so, if as of now we are conducting an exercise that is yet to end by tomorrow with an additional mop-up arrangement that the EC has put in place, and people still disagreed, I think that position is up to them. But I frankly think that some substantial and drastic arrangement has been made for us to have a more credible system than we had. If you care to know, the Justice Crab Committee made the point to the Electoral Commission then that there were about 580,000 dead people on the register, and that the EC should take steps to delete all those names. And then that in Abu Ramadan 1, 2, and 3, the Supreme Court directed the EC to take steps to clean the register. And you all saw what happened. And then people have come forth to testify that they had registered with the health insurance ID card, yet their names were in the register. So I see no difficulty why the need to have a robust system that will support our democratic arena will be challenged at this stage by individual. Frankly speaking, I'm also not surprised about the posture of the NDC as of now and some few individuals. This is a process. They never liked it. They've always challenged it. And I think that the position of the New Patriotic Party has been clear since 2014 that we needed to have a system that is justifiable, credible, that allows for eligible Ghanaians of the 18 years and above age who reside within the electoral area to be given the opportunity to register, therefore contribute to the decision making of Ghana.
Okay, if I get you right,
all those arguments from Bright.
No, if I get you right, you're saying that apart from the issue of the opposition to that issue, if we had a limited register in 2020, we would have had 2 million more people. Yes. If you add that to the 16.8,
2 million or more, because
how did you arrive at the 2 million?
Yes.
How did you arrive at 2 million?
I'm saying that if you look at election year and you looking at limited registration exercise, the figures will point to you that more people get to register, so they participate in the decision making of who become.
Okay, but I can tell you something.
Members of Parliament.
Let me give you something. The first time voters recorded by the EC itself for phase 1 to 4 was 480,851. This is what the EC put out. This is something they gave us a couple of weeks ago. Total number of first-time voters, 18 years registered of national, whatever. That's 480,000 for the first 4 phases.
But also, it's very clear that when you do statistical projection,
first-time voters, it's not only those who are 18 years.
I can't hear him well, so I'm not sure.
It's not only those who are 18 years. And I'm saying that, yes, Bright can make his disagreement with this position. I'm saying that it is possible that the EC would have made more figures than they had in the limited registration exercise preceding the referendum.
So you're saying it will be 18, 19, 20, and 21. Okay, I get you. So 18, 19, 20, 21 will all be new people who haven't registered.
No, that's why they say 18 and above.
18 and above.
That captures all those.
Yeah, but so I'm just getting. So you are saying that the figure he's given of 2 million is not possible.
What I'm saying is that
he's
saying that it's possible, right?
Yes,
it's possible. Tomorrow there'll be a hurricane that will take this building into Jupiter.
Okay.
That's how we do statistical analysis. There are very careful standards that apply when you want to do a statistical projection. You take historical data and you look at trends. and you say, are there any abrupt reasons within the particular domain within which I'm projecting that might alter that course? If we look at election year numbers, we take 2012, and we say, okay, how many new voters compared to 2008? And we take 2016, which was an election year, and we look at how many new voters were registered during the limited registration. We have a fair amount of assurance that no way would we have had more than 1 million, 1.2 million thereabouts. In fact, in 2016, during the limited registration in 2016, we had 1 million people. In 2019, which was not an election year, we had 1.2 million people. So the argument that during an election year we necessarily have more people is not necessarily true. In 2004, when we had our limited registration, we actually saw a decline in total numbers. So the view is actually not supported by the theory and by the evidence. In fact, one of the fascinating things that I observed when you look at the patterns in the data is that during election years, we have low turnouts, which is another point that has also been raised about why there's likely bloating. So for instance, people don't realize that when you take 2012, whenever there is a likelihood that there'll be a change in government, we tend to have lower turnouts. So when we had 68.7% in 2016, they then argued that, oh, look, how can you have less than 70% of people in an election year? That tells you that the voter roll is bloated. Forget that in 2000, when we had a change, and in 2008, when we had a change, we also had some of the lowest turnouts.
So let's just put it this way. Assuming we had kept the 16.8 for 2019, and not done this exercise, and just had a limited registration,
the maximum number would have been something in the region of 1.2 million.
Good.
So that's what's consistent.
So if you add that 1.2 to the 16.8,
you get 18 million.
That's still 18 million. Now I'm coming. Now we have 15.1 million.
Good.
By close of tomorrow, we'll probably have had 16.7 million.
I project more than 17 million because by day 31, by the end of the exercise, right, they have something in the region of 15 million, right?
Yes.
If you look at the average turnout phase, there are 6 phases now. This will be the last phase. It's bordering the region of about 2.5 million, right? If the trend is consistent, and there's no reason why the trend should not be consistent, we could have something in the region of 17 million.
No, but you see, day 31 includes the first day of phase 6.
So we should look, we can use days.
So I have your average. Your average is about 450,000 per phase.
Okay. So even if you take the average is 450,000 per day, right?
Yes, per day.
Okay.
And you have 6 days.
Okay. If you do your projection, what do you get?
So you see,
you get something in the region of 2 million minimum.
Yes.
If you add the 2 million to the 15 million, how do you get?
17 million.
There's no way we're getting less than 17 million unless something dramatic happens.
But then he's saying that, I'm coming.
But let me give you another reason.
Just hold on. If you have 17 million, if we hadn't done the register, you would have 16.8 plus 1.2, that's 18.
No. You have to also ask yourself, what is the usual duration of mass registration exercise in this country? In the last one that we did in 2012, when we were registering everybody all over again, we spent 40 days. And then we had a mop-up. Why are we spending fewer days? And why is the EC refusing the mop-up?
They'll do the mop-up. They sent a release, they'll do the mop-up.
So how much will the mop-up add?
We don't know.
Good. So is it possible that we hit 17.5 million if you add the mop-up?
But that's still 500,000 less than we would have had.
If you had extended the days to 40 days instead of the 36 days. So I'm trying to say that there are statistical reasons where if you analyze things properly, even the 18 million we'll have got, if we had done a limited registration, we could have gotten this one as well.
Good. Let me take my
last point.
Good.
Then you have to add to that the effects of the pandemic. There are people in the middle classes who are not registering because they don't want to get infected. Even if there's 500,000 of them, that already significantly alters your final number. Think of those factors carefully.
So you're saying that if add all those factors, we would have had the same 18 million?
Absolutely, without doubt. Then
so does that mean that then that 18 million is actually the real number of people who are supposed to be on the poll? So the view that we were bloated was wrong?
It's absolutely wrong. Why? Because we are not even projecting in that regard the fact of the matter, which is that, okay, if you have dead people in the old register removed before you start to do your projection, then the population growth rate does not even account for the total growth.
Okay, hold on. Evans, the arguments have been made. I think you've heard many things. What's your major disagreement with Bright in terms of the statistical analysis is made?
I think Bennett, from the very onset, he hasn't been a key supporter.
No, but let's forget about that. Let's forget about that. Let's look at what he's saying. An argument has merit irrespective of who makes it. So listen to the argument and respond.
He has not been able to, with all his statistical background he's telling us, he has not been able to tell us that at the close of the sixth phase, which is tomorrow, plus the mop-up, which he wasn't aware, the figure he can target, he has not been able to say that. He's not been able to tell us the number of middle class who have not been registered because of COVID-19. But Bennett, I think the arrangement for having a new voters register has nothing to do with a bloated register. It was an argument of the Electoral Commission that the voter management system I inherited has a lot of defects and is not robust to support
I like that point
conduct of a presidential and parliamentary election, which is not as a district level election. So that is the point. The other issue is that.
Sorry, are you saying that the EC never said the register was bloated? Is that what you're telling me?
I never heard that as part of the EC's argument for a new register. What I heard of was that their DVR, DVDs, most of them had reached their end of life.
No, but they argued. No, Mister. They argued in the recent case that the names that had to be expunged.
The Attorney General filed a supplementary in which he declared that from statistical analysis, the voter was bloated. When we decided to submit an article to challenge that,
hold on. Evans, I'm just trying to make a point that factually, when you read the pleadings, the filings, it's very clear that the EC believed that the register was bloated. So you can't come and tell us that the EC never said that. It was in the filings.
Yes, I mean, these are recent issues when somebody and NDC went to court, including Imani. And I'm saying that the basis for the new voters register, as we were told by the Electoral Commission at IPAC, was that they did not have enough and a robust system to manage their voter management system. And therefore, they were anticipating so many possible data loss. Their district officers could not communicate with their data center, and it was not going to be helpful. More so, SPL had communicated to them that there was the need to go for a changeover of electoral management.
Well, we can really litigate those issues because a lot of evidence was
Bryce, I think I'm not at the studio with you, and you should allow me to make my point. The point I'm making is that, yes, you are one of those who never supported this argument, and so you are still stuck to your position. What I'm saying is that going into this 2020 elections, I think the decision of the Electoral Commission to compile a new voter register was in the right direction. What we've experienced so far is a registration process that has been run very well. It has been very transparent. The EC has been updating stakeholders at all times. Issued about figures, anticipated 17 million and more, and where we are. I think that what we've gotten, forgetting about it, so there are opportunities for people to register. I've gone around registration centers. There are centers you go to, there are nobody to register. And the EC ad hoc staffs are seated, registration officers are seated and doing nothing. So yes, at the end of tomorrow, which ends the whole registration process, the EC will come out with a new mop-up date. We will still monitor the process, and then we can come out with absolute figures, not the projected one as we keep on discussing. So for me, it is.
I think I need to respond now.
Yes.
Our time.
All right, Evans, we'll
conclude tomorrow, and then we can take it up.
I'll take a short break and take Bryce's response when we come back. This is still the point of view we're trying to understand. In fact, Bryce was going to do two arguments. The argument about the issue of the register being bloated, he says he will demolish. Then the issue of the Togolese, you also do that when we come back. Stay with us.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
Welcome back to The Point of View. In studio, Bryce Simmons, Vice President of Imani, Evans Nimaku on Zoom, MPP, Director of Elections. Okay, but I think I want you to talk quickly about the issue of the Togolese, because you are saying that that's also not true.
Well, I don't have all the time, but I'm just going to be very quick about that and say that we can take the regional breakdowns as the starting point of that analysis and say how many people were in voter region and how has been the nature of increase over the years, electoral cycle to electoral cycle. And you come to the very same conclusion I made before, that in fact, the rate of increase of people on the voter regional roll is actually declining. The relative rate of increase.
Yes, yes.
So on what basis can you make an argument that there's some grand plot cooked somewhere in Lomi to bring in Togolese to come and destabilize Ghanaian politics by somehow distorting outcomes? That cannot be true. If you look at OT as an example, because we did a deep dive into OT, and then we did it for the whole region. They had about 366,000 people on the roll before this particular cycle. And now they're around 316,000. If you project to the end of the cycle, we're going to see something in the region of 370,000 people. That is significantly more. Now, we have to also consider the fact, and I think that is an important point I want to make before I run out of time, that the only way we can remove minors and dead people from the register, which from all the analysis appears to be the only possibility for there being more people than are eligible to be on the register, the only way we're going to do that is through birth certificates. The only institution in this country that keeps a record of births and a record of deaths is the Birth and Deaths Registry. When the court purports to rule that somehow birth certificates cannot be valid documents for either identity or citizenship, and therefore fortifies with precedent a decision made by electoral commission not to accept birth certificate, what is the mechanism by which you're going to identify minors? I don't understand that logic. I mean, the only document that tells you what somebody's age is officially is the one document they say they cannot accept. And we live in a country we want to remove minors from the register and want to remove deaf people from the register. If you cannot accept the birth certificate, you definitely cannot accept the death certificate, because the same roots, using the analogy that has become popular now, a poison root, poison fruit. So if the death and birth registry does not have adequate and proper records, and you want to remove minors, and you want to remove dead people, and they are the only one with records of minors and dead people, then how exactly are you going to clean up this register?
Fantastic. I want to do two quick things. A quick correction, Evans and Bright. The EC's mop-up will not happen in the constituencies. They say go to your district office. It's not the same as the typical mop-up they do where they go.
Because I saw that they said they wouldn't do it.
I think you were partially right. There's a mop-up, but it's not in the same.
It's continuous registration, which is done in other years.
Yes.
But the mop-up, which they typically do in mass registration, they didn't do it. And they reduced the total number of days from 41 to 36.
A couple of questions.
You have to account for that as well.
Someone is asking me to ask you, if you say a lot of middle-class people have not registered because of the pandemic, are you one of them?
Yeah, I've not registered.
You've not registered?
Yeah.
Is it because of the pandemic?
Well, partly because it's also out of protest. It's out of protest.
So you are protesting by not registering?
Yes. But of course, there's still one day left.
You are forfeiting your right.
I might change my mind. There's still one day left.
You are forfeiting your right to register. As in, because to be fair, in the final phase, there isn't any crowding. There's social distancing.
See, some of us have taken a principled stance that this direction that this country is going is taking us into what we saw in Ivory Coast with Voltaire. I have been against this from 2016. You can check all my writings in my blog, on Facebook. I'm very, very, very suspicious of this new trend. We have to be very careful as a country. I saw the debates in the way it was going in Ivory Coast around the Voltaire. It was exactly like this. This notion that there's some grand plan by foreigners to destabilize Ghanaian politics should not be allowed to stand. And I'm happy that we are now getting the evidence, the empirical evidence, to completely uproot it once and for all.
What's your reaction to the voter issue? The rate of increase of the voter numbers has actually been lower than other regions. How come there's this almost paranoia that there are Togolese coming onto the register and therefore there are security people in the border town, particularly in Sketu South, to prevent Togolese from coming in? The statistics don't seem to bear out that suspicion.
Well, Bennett, if you look at the figures and you are still monitoring the figures, then mind you, the new Patriotic Party in Volta region is an opposition party. I can tell you of instances where our agents have been attacked. Some of the incidents have been reported to the police, and some of them have been covered by your colleague media people. And Bright's position that he can link this to Ivory Coast, I don't see the head and tail of it. The point is that we have gone to the field before the commencement of the registration exercise. We knew of unapproved routes in Volta region, in OT, across all the borders. And I'm telling you, as we sit now, it has gone beyond 150 unapproved routes. And I'm saying that if not because of some vigilance of our agents and other arrangements that we've empowered our agents, the figures would have been different.
No, but Evans, he's saying that if you look at the voter figures from 2000, the rate of increase in voter numbers has actually been lower than other regions. So how can a region that has fewer voters than the rate of growth of voters in Volta lower than other comparable regions, how does that region get infiltrated?
The higher the rate of growth. So Accra has been one of the biggest.
Evans, you get the question I'm asking you.
Right. We never said that a region has more or less. We said that we needed to have a system.
No, I think that what is happening is that there is a lot of apocryphal on his back. Okay. Well, if he's not back and we have very little time, let me just make my point. I think that there's a lot of apocryphal conspiracy theories around. And it's not different from 5G causes coronavirus, COVID-19 and things like that. So there's been this long-term held belief that somehow there are some people that have planned that they will bus hundreds of thousands of people to come and change Ghanaian electoral outcomes. There is no evidence for it. There is absolutely no evidence for it. If there are any attempts whatsoever, there are attempts that are made to get minors to vote, multiple registrations. The EC continue to talk about the fact that they have multiple registrations that are done deliberately. In 2019, they said there are 24,000 people that are registered in every year, and therefore in multiple. I mean, this is weird. You are supposed to be running a biometric system. In a biometric system, you're supposed to be doing periodic batching. You don't have a situation where you wait 1 month after, then you come and give us this. These are the things that are fueling these speculations. And my argument is that let's not go down the path of Ivory. Ivory destroyed Ivory Coast, and we should be careful as a country not to fan these ethnic flames and these conspiratorial claims.
Thank you. We had Bryce Simmons, Vice President of Imani, in studio. We had Evans Nimo, Director of Elections of MPP, on Zoom. We apologize for the break in this argument. Evans, thank you for joining us. Bryce, thank you for joining us as ever. This program was brought to you by Airtel Tigo. My name is Bennett Avle. We'll see you next time. Stay with City TV. Bye-bye.
Point of View is powered by Airtel Tigo Extra. Even our bonus data doesn't expire. You dey feel am? Dial *111# to activate now. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple. And Lydia Contraceptive. With Lydia, you truly decide.
I'm excited.
Yeah, Charlie, I'm not
Though
too excited.
The news that we are about to bring
share.
to you is not so exciting, but because we know you guys are with us, we've got to be excited for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we need to keep it balanced, okay, because the news are not too great, right? News are not too great. But well, welcome to 30 Minutes, your number one and our number one favorite social media show in the whole wide world, from Ghana to the world, just name it. And our names are Imani Sapun, aka Olesaro on Twitter, and
I am now Adele Mofati. And that's come up on Twitter.
Yeah, yesterday I watched the playback and I heard Andole.
I was like, what? Charlie, you guys,
Charlie,
the pressure you give me.
It's all vibes.
I'm so happy to be. I'm overly excited.
Yeah,
that's
Charlie. Same here. I mean, I'm still trying to keep my composure because we can't wait to break the news to you guys. Some of you guys know what's going on already, but we're here to project it, into your home. So, fellow Ghanaians, it's an honor to be in your homes again. Charlie, what's up for today?
Yeah, coronavirus.
Same old same, man. We can't do without it.
An explosion in Beirut.
Beirut, yeah.
And then